Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's episode of the Hearts of Men podcast, sponsored by the Empowering Perspective community. We are your hosts for this evening's show. I am Dwayne Dwyer, the mindset coach. Over there, we got Mr. Uncle Junior himself, Garfield Martin. Below me is son of Timothy, Mr. Tawami Gaddy. And below Mr. Martin, you have rolling down the street, Minister Roland Walker. Um, Listen, again, another beautiful day, another beautiful week. It is the end of the year. How are you doing?
Man,
Man,
I'm doing
I'm
great.
doing all right.
Doing great.
If we were all together, we'd be singing, Stevie Wonder's "Happy Birthday" to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
You see, I had to put it in the
I
thing.
see
I'm
what
like,
Yeah.
you did there.
like
It was his
55. Where?
birthday today.
I see what you did. I appreciate it, man. Thank you,
I,
man.
Yeah.
And
Gonna
thank you,
turn
everybody. In
56 years old today. Happy
definitely not
56.
56. No,
yeah.
not 56.
You,
I am
you
a
said
second
66?
49.
Oh
49.
nine.
Knocking
Oh
on the door
nine.
50. I'm not there yet.
Oh,
Shout out to everybody in the chats. Thank you for all of the birthday wishes. I appreciate that. You guys are awesome, man. They're already lighting the chats up, man. I appreciate you. Listen, if this is your first time joining us, we welcome you. We thank you for being here and we value you. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and share it, and go ahead and leave a comment. Go ahead and announce yourself in the chat as well. We would love to speak to you and celebrate you on this evening, and just thank you for showing up. We just want to appreciate everybody who shows up for these awesome discussions because we greatly appreciate you. Evening, Michelle Ray. Evening, Cassandra. Hey, Sharina, how you doing? Let me see. Who am I missing? Am I missing anybody? Nobody yet? Okay, great. Just want to make sure that we shout out everybody because we appreciate you guys. Hey, Miss Lisa Keys, how you doing? I got to go back and forth the screens because this one over here is a little delayed. Um, but we just want to make sure that we reach out to everybody. I hope that everybody has an awesome plan for the New Year's. How you going to bring it in? I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm bringing in the New Year's on my neck. I'll be asleep. Just saying. I don't do the party and stuff anymore. We don't do that. So, but listen. I want to start off, and I want to make sure that everybody understand this is part three of a series that we've been working on. So if you have not heard part one or part two, please go back and listen to one and two because, as a reminder, I am in the giving spirit, and at the first of the year, after next week's episode, I plan on giving away something. But to get it, you got to answer the question, and the question is going to come from one of the four episodes. So I'm just putting that out there right now. Again, go back and listen to it because I think these episodes are awesome. So this particular series, well, these series, as you were, is about functioning in dysfunction. Last week was about dysfunctional relationships. This week is about dysfunctional parenting.
Hmm.
Now, again, as you know, I like setting the conditions, and we've been doing this now for 3 weeks. So I'm not going to read it to you. I'm just going to let it scroll at the bottom as we talk about it because I think this is going to be some great conversation as we're going into it. Again, everybody in the chat, I want you participating in these discussions because we're going to learn from you as we have these discussions as well. You always add value, and I ask for your support as we have this discussion. So, with that being said, we're going to start off with the reflection of the gentleman on the panel. And the reflection is, where did you learn your parenting skills? So, with that being said, gentlemen, the floor belongs to you. Where did you learn your parenting skills?
I start off by saying, me personally, a mixture between, and I think everybody can attest to this, my parents, right? Uh, then I learned from watching other parents that I kind of admired and how they dealt with their children. Uh, Thirdly would be the Cosbys. Now, we all learn some ideal of what a family looks like. At least I can speak for my generation growing up watching the Cosby Show and Family Matters, because TV does have an influence. And then, as of right now, you know, no current parent has the answers. As much as I like to think we do, I would say me, I'm learning as I'm parenting. I see effects of what I do on my children. If I don't like it, I start to adjust fire. And then I got some big brothers, that's been through the fire. They got some older kids, and every now and then I have a conversation or I listen to what they're saying or what they're doing and emulate those things that I feel are repeatable.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of different places, kind of like um, same some of the same things. Cosby Show, different shows on TV. You know, watching those things growing up, you kind of remember how Claire and Cliff were as parents. And honestly, I watched a lot of Roseanne. I thought that they might have been a little bit more realistic of the people that I knew, but you know, it is what it is. It was a little bit more dysfunctional than the Cosbys, but it was what it was. I learned from parents. I didn't learn from a lot of aunts and uncles. I know a lot of times we say in the culture that it takes a village. Well, I was in the military, so I traveled and I moved, and every couple of years I was in a different spot. So I didn't really have the luxury of having that so-called family village to help me support and raise my kids. And I'm not saying that it was their responsibility because it wasn't. But you know, for me, um, it was just a lot of times that's where I learned from was just people, you know, you go to duty station, you run to some first class Dwyer and he got some good news. He got a situation that he didn't been through. That is one good thing about the military is that there's a lot of older guys, a lot of older cats that had already been through some stuff that you didn't been through that you can talk about that can help you with your parenting. So I will say that honestly, good, bad, or indifferent, I learned a lot being in the military from NCOs above me who had families.
Nice.
Now me, I learned first and foremost from my great grandmother, who was raising us. But she, I don't know if you would call it parenting, because like I said, it was my great grandmother, so she was pretty much just trying to keep the herd intact. And but we learned from elders in the community, from TV, from every facet of life. Teachers, certain teachers kind of held you closer when you weren't such a knucklehead or whatever. And everybody watched TV, whether it was uh little for us in our generation, since it's your birthday, you older. We watched Little House on the Prairie. We watched the Brady Bunch. We had uh, different models of what we thought family was supposed to look like James Evans Jr., James in Florida. So we knew that, hey, spare the rod, spoil the child, because James was gonna lay that leather to you. And I think a lot of my parenting skills came from trial and error. Trial and error. So that's why I always say my oldest daughter, oh, we beat the brakes off her for everything. We beat the brakes off her. Like, hey, don't do this. Like, then it's like as you grow, like you don't got to beat the baby for everything.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the oldest one, I think, yeah, they kind of get it. They're kind of the guinea pig. You know, I think I was way harder. I know I was harder on my oldest than I was the other two. So
I
yeah,
think
definitely trial and error.
Definitely.
I think
Definitely.
Good
I think
point.
every senior child right now is resonating with exactly what you're saying. Um, so yeah, I would definitely agree with all of that. I mean, for me, it was more so about observing because I had like the hybrid thing, right? So the I had my mom, but then obviously I had my grandparents as well. So I seen my mom in action, I seen my grandparents in action. And then, of course, I had the other side of my family, my dad's side of the family. So I seen them in action as well. And obviously, just to caveat off what you guys are saying, as well as everybody in the chat, we had those TV shows, we had the Huxtables, we had the different strokes. I think Michelle Ray's mentioned that, the facts of life, and those things. And that's like the utopian for a child, right? Like that would
Webster.
be so awesome. I didn't like Webster. I'm sorry.
Silver spoons. What about silver
Yeah,
spoons?
absolutely, absolutely. But
Yeah,
that
we
was
telling our age,
yeah,
man.
well, I already told mine at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
But that was like the best case scenario for every child who, seen it on TV. Like that would be so awesome to be raised up in that environment. And I'll be honest with you, um, it is just understanding that this is what I've seen growing up. And then when I became a parent, it was like, well, yeah, I'm going to probably, you know, raise my kids the exact same way, do some things the exact same way. I think I probably mentioned a few weeks back that Saturday mornings is cleanup for me because that's what Saturday mornings were when I was growing up. So yeah, it's I think that's important to understand because I think mostly everybody can resonate with that. Like mostly everybody can say that I learned parenting from my parents. And then the trial and error kicked in, and I realized that that didn't work, and that didn't work, or I did it wrong, or whatever the case may be. But I think that's pretty much the norm. Young Timmy, I think you were about to say something. No, okay. I thought I was seeing had a
Oh,
Yeah,
hand.
good.
yeah. I wanted to alibi on something that Uncle Junior said
Yeah,
because when you talked about the village and then you talked about the military, you know, I want to, and I'm gonna let them know I shout out so if they ain't click on my link I shared, they can come back and watch the playback. But I want to shout out. There's a family in the military I ran into the Bullets. Uh, the husband, he was my first sergeant when I first got to Fort Hood, and the wife, she was my NCOIC in the S1 when I PCS to Fort Sill. So I ended up working for both of them. But when I tell you these people love children, they go out their way. To this day, they babysit and keep people's children that deploy, and they retire. You know,
yeah,
retired sergeant major, retired sergeant first class. They so I shout out to them and anybody out there that's like them in the military that understands how important it is, especially for young parents in the military, to step in that gap because you save families like that. You know, because mothers who are home alone with the kids get stressed out with deployments and field problems, and
yeah.
they can't do it no more. That saves families. So I just want to shout out, you know, to those people like that who are still in the military, still doing it, man. So I just wanted to do that. My
No,
bad.
absolutely. Go ahead.
And that's one of those reasons why, like when I first met Tawami, with him, his wife, and they had younger kids, I embraced them because I know as a young person with young kids gonna drive you crazy. And his wife will tell you when they come over, I take the kids because she be move here, do this. I'm like, leave the babies alone. Like they know, hey, Uncle Ro gonna give you some chicken. I'm gonna give you something to eat. You 2 months old, but you just chew on the bone. But it's like I take over the kids because I'm like, I'm gonna help save them from the parents and help them grow at the same time.
But y'all try to call me all at the beginning of the show. Listen, I just listen. Shout out to everybody out there. Welcome, Queen V. Good to see you. Welcome to the show. Great to have you. Again, if this is your first time, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, share it with somebody else because we're about to get into this conversation, and we're going to after sharing our experiences, we're about to talk about parents and functionality. Now, this goes back to what I mentioned in the beginning when we first started these conversations. And I use the example of the butter knife. Again, there's only really one function for a butter knife, but we have used it in so many different functionalities to where we have abused it. And that's really what the truth is. Whenever you use something outside of its core creation, then we are abusing it. So when it comes down to parenting functionality, gentlemen, what is the true function of a parent? Mm-mm. Whoever want to start, man, I'm good
I'll
with it.
start. One of them is to provide security, and I think that comes in, being able to provide at least their basic needs, food, shelter, clothes, blah blah blah. That's just part of it. You know what I mean? But I think at the end of the day, like kids need to have stability. You know what I mean? So, the more stability that parents can give their kids, the more security they have, the better off the child will be. Um, and however you come up with that level of security is different. um it's subjective at the same time because you will see some families where when we grew up, you could go to the corner store and buy cigarettes and alcohol for your parents or for your auntie or whoever. You know what I mean? Nowadays, I don't think it happens as much. So
The,
like I said,
cig-
I
the,
just think security. What'd
the
you say?
cigarettes and alcohol don't happen as much.
No, no, those
Oh,
still
okay.
happen, but I don't think,
You can't buy.
8-year-old kids can walk to the store and go and buy them anymore. We could go to the corner store. We live in my aunt and them, they live in apartments and they'd be like, hey, go down there and get me some goody powders and some, in a fifth or something, what I mean, or whatever it was back then. Some probably Thunderbird or
TJ
whatever the
Swan.
thing was. Yeah, some Cisco or something. I don't remember. But
Um,
yeah,
he said Cisco, y'all.
yeah, but then nowadays you can't do that. But I think, as a parent, what I mean, if you want your child to grow up and be somewhat successful and have a good life, you got to be able to provide that a certain level of security for them. And I think it looks different based off the parents. But yeah, definitely security.
Okay.
I think when it comes to what we should provide everything that a child needs to grow into a healthy adult. And that would be educationally, spiritually. You lead your children. That's why I don't understand these parents who say, well, I'm going to let them figure it out, let them choose and let them this. No, well, even in their choices, you have to guide and limit their choices because you can't always you can't allow people to make decisions about things that they aren't prepared for without preparing them for it. So I think when it comes to children, I want my children, I want it, I got old kids now. They got to be fully functional adults because when you get grown, I want you to be grown. I don't want you to be searching for who you should have been and then blaming me. And no, I'm going to give you every advantage for whatever you need to grow into that adult.
Yeah. So just so you guys know, I'm going to play devil's advocate for this conversation for
Man,
this
you've been
particular
saying that
time.
for a couple of weeks. They already know.
Okay, I'm just saying.
You
Go
gonna throw them rocks.
ahead.
Yeah, Ro hit on one of the major things I was going to say, which is my foundation. I think I stand on when I reevaluate, because as life goes on, I reevaluate what I'm doing, as they get older. But the one thing I keep mainly in my mind is I'm not raising children to be children. Yeah, you let them be children, but I'm raising them to be functional adults in society, right? And that comes with a lot of things, how my father taught me to look a man in the eye, shake his hand when you meet a man, say it's okay to use yes sir, yes ma'am when you're talking to your elders, right? I know nowadays the new generation say that comes from slavery. You shouldn't say sir, ma'am. Like I'm not getting punched in the throat by my daddy, so I'm saying yes sir, yes ma'am. But what is the true function of a parent? I think one of the key things for me that needs to be said in today's climate is the function of a parent first comes from a mother and a father. They, that is important. I understand, everybody's walk ain't the same, everybody's story ain't the same, but the reality is the ideal is to have both parents functioning first of all in those children's lives. Very important. At the end of the day, those of us who are separated from the other parent of our children, a lot of times we don't get along. We don't have the same ideology, but your time to choose the parent happened 9 months before the kid got here. And I hate to say it that way, right? But it is what it is. And I try so hard to remind myself I can't write my kid's story, but I can give them tools on how to deal and how to handle life with their story, whatever that story may be. So I hang my hat right there. Like we need both parents. You may not like me, but we are both important and valuable to the upbringing of these children. Uh, so though everything that everyone said on the panel and in the chat is true, but what you offer and it's just natural. I don't want to turn the conversation, but it's just reality and natural. What you provide and what I provide, there are some things that just biologically different that I do as a father that you do as a mother. I don't do as a father. And what I do as a father, you don't do as we aren't built the same, and
Yeah.
we have to first admit that. You know, like I used to, I don't say nothing no more, but I used to eat people I could not stand on Mother's Day, Happy Mother Father Day, and on Father's Day, Happy Father Mother. No, no. No. If your child ain't got a father, they ain't got a father. You're not mommy and daddy. They just got a mommy. And that's sad to say, but that goes to show how important this whole conversation is, because this conversation needs to be had to people right now who don't have children. Before you get to that conception point, make sure you know you and that person first of all have the same mind frame. Like, I'm sorry, we going deep,
I
and
got you, man.
I'm a digress.
I got you. You getting some stuff off your chest. I got it. Listen, I'm agreeing with everybody, everything that everybody's saying. I think I would probably say it differently. I think my child deserves, and this is the true function of a parent, in my opinion. Um, Going back to what Roland said, Tawami said, and what Uncle Junior said, right? Sure, they need the stability, they need the security, they need everything. That's pretty much what Roland says, and they need to be raised to be functional adults. And I underline the word functional because that's really what this entire conversation is. But in order to get that, they need the best version of who I am at that particular point in time. They don't need the foolishness I used to be, right? Trust me, I understand that we like to have those conversations. Yeah, I used to do that, and yeah, that just helps them to understand that you're human. But what they need is the lessons that you've learned up to that point. I think I said it last week that your ceiling at that particular point in time should be their ground floor. So when they leave home, they're getting the best version of you, and then it kind of propels them in life. It's an old saying that every generation precedes the next one, right? It's kind of they stay better than the next or the previous. I'm sorry, every generation is better than the previous, and that should be the case because the parents should be teaching that child to be better than who they were, right? But that child has the ability to discover who they're supposed to be in the long term. um, but Uncle June, you told me it's subjective. Again, I want to play devil's advocate. I'm not shooting at you. This is a group question. So when you say subjective, what is it that you mean, or what do you guys think he's mean when he's saying that stability and security is subjective? I got the whole liquor store and the cigarettes. We're gonna take those off the table real quick. But what do you mean when you say subjective?
Because I see it. I work in elementary school,
Mhm.
so I see there are laws or whatever that say, even back to your, I think it was, yeah, I think it would go back to your story that you told. I think last week we was on Wednesday, and you talked about how you know a 13-year-old is allowed to stay at home in Texas.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it's like one person may say that that's okay, and the other person, one person may say, yes, this is security enough. You know what I mean? This is
Right.
good enough. The law says this is okay. And the other parent may say, well, no, it's not. It's really not. If you really think about it and you add some logic to it, it's really not. So that's what I mean by be subjective, is that what one person may see as secure, the other parent may not see it the same way.
Absolutely. Yep.
Or back to, like I was saying, I work in elementary school, so I see it all day long. You know what I mean? There are teachers who will be like, "Oh, with this parent, this child living in such disarray and such bad conditions," and I'm just like, they're really not. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's just their heat was off for one day, and the temperature only got down to 60. I think they'll be okay. But some people would say that the child doesn't have proper security or proper heating inside of the home. So
Yeah. So I
I,
guess no. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Mm-mm.
Um, and just to your question, when you said what do we think he means, because I kind of feel where he's going with that. I think when you say subjective, and correct me if I'm wrong, is really how you came up and how you view your upbringing as well. That states that, right? Because you might call CPS and say my children are unkept, but if the CPS come over there and investigate, and they say no, that's well enough. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with you there. But I think the reason why it's subjective because some people just they look back on their childhood and they say They said, nope, I didn't like my parents did that. I didn't feel secure, blah, blah, blah. You know, and they shift off of that. But then you get some others, because I grew up just like how you described. You know, my mom used to say, man, go downstairs and get me a pack of Newport. You know, you go downstairs and the guy in the corner store, he knew my mom's and he knew who I was, and he said, all right, you take this straight upstairs to your mom. And sometimes he ain't say nothing. I walk in with my mom money in the hand, you reach back, grab the cigarettes, and, you know, and keep it pushing. Today you might go to jail, you know,
Yeah.
for sending your child to the store for a pack of Newports. You know, so then that begs the question: is illegal unsecured because it's illegal today? Well, it was illegal then too. Let's just be
No, it
100.
wasn't.
We just got away with it.
It wasn't an illegal thing.
No, well, y'all a little older than me. It was illegal when I did
Oh.
We ain't talking about the bootleggers. We ain't talking about the bootleggers. Right.
No, it was legal in the stores.
Right.
And remember when we were growing up, they had like candy machines with cigarettes in it. You go put your money in and pull the thing, and boom, some cool miles drop out.
Now, who's the oldest on the show?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry, I just want to put that out there. But so so I'm asking this because I really want to get after something here, because I agree when you look at parents and the way they raise their children. You know, there is subjective parenting. You can look at it and see different parents doing different things and doing these things different ways. But we're getting after the true function of a parent. And when we start talking function, I believe when we get after the function of a thing, it was designed to operate in a particular way. So, is there a function? And I'm not taking away from the subjectivity. I agree with you guys 100%. But is there a true function? Because I want to bring this one up, and I'm looking at all of these statements, and they're spot on. I'm agreeing with them, right? Raise if you don't raise your kids, you will raise your grandkids.
Mhm.
Garbage in, garbage out concept can influence your children's functionality. The function of a parent is to raise their child up in the way, to raise your child up in the way that they should go. So I'm bringing these to the table because can we, as senior individuals, senior men, right? Can we say that there is a true function to parenting, in your opinions?
Multiplication. I said that last week, I think.
Okay, I agree with that. If you guys don't remember if you don't know what he mean by multiplication, you got to go back and take a look at it.
I would say that at best, uh, for fathers especially, we are mentors.
I would say yes, based off of your belief system. So I would say,
Okay.
yeah, based off certain belief system, based off some set of principles or something like that. Because I can look at this set of principles and it be spot on,
Mhm.
right? And I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what it is. And I can go over here and I can see a criteria and be spot on too. So I think yes, there is,
Yeah.
but I think it's based off of your belief system.
I agree 100%. I think there has to be a set of principles that govern the way that you behave in when it comes down to children. Then we get after the subjectivity, right? So, but the principles are objective, period. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I do this? Now, when we start talking to mentorship, how I mentor, that's subjective, right? How I multiply, how I help my child multiply, that's subjective. And so we start looking at those things. I think Uncle Junior, I'm with you. Not that you guys are wrong, but I'm agreeing exactly with what he's saying. Based upon your belief system, your upbringing, your morals, and your values, I think that gets after the functionality of a parent. You grow and evolve, and that gets you to the subjective behavior to where you see these parents doing things differently, but the function should still be the same. And I think when we look at it from that perspective, I think that should get parents collectively literally on the same sheet of music, because remember, we're trying to strengthen our community, strengthen neighborhoods and things of that nature. So if I catch little Tawami down the street showing off, I already know who his dad is. I already know how his daddy behave. I know how his daddy is as a father, because we talk, we communicate, we vibe on the same level. So when I catch little Twan, I'm like, come here, young buck, let me talk to you real quick, right? I know your daddy, me and your daddy friends. I know you don't see me over your house. I need you to straighten up, get up out these streets doing this mess because he's not going to approve. You see what I'm saying? So that's how we do the extension of parenting through the functionality. So that's just my thoughts. Any thoughts in comparison with that, or anybody disagree with what I'm saying? And I'm open to disagreement, by the way.
I agree, but I think what's first important, if I don't create a level of structure in my house, you didn't strike no fear in my child by saying I know your daddy.
Absolutely.
And that's why
Absolutely.
kids respond that way.
See, and like what both of you guys are saying, I remember people would ask you, "Ain't you like me? Ain't you Miss Cochran's boy?"
Ain't you rolling, boy?
No, they ain't say that. My daddy was in the wind in the streets, but they say, "Ain't you Miss Cochran boy?" And so they knew her standard already. So when I'm acting not within how if she around, how I should be acting, they would straighten me up. And I knew that I didn't want to put a stain on her name, her
Yeah.
reputation. Because when I got home, I was going to have to hear about it or feel the wrath.
And see, that's the thing which you just said, that last piece. I think that goes back to the functionality, right? Because you, as a parent, you taught them what it means to honor thy mother and thy father, right? It's bigger than respect. It's damaging the name with my behavior out in the streets. And so when we get after that, that means the parent had to instill that in the child, because you got too many other distractions. You got the YouTube, you got Instagram, you got TikTok, you got all this other stuff, right? But sometimes you got to kind of point them back to the principles and teach them the principles that govern your belief system so that, like Tawami said, you don't want to damage his name. You don't want to damage her name. Like when you out in the street, you're representing your parents. I got it. You're still trying to figure life out, but there's some rules that govern your behavior. And if you don't instill that in a child, then the streets will determine those behaviors. So yeah, I'm agreeing. You guys are already on it. Again, if this is your first time, I had a moment of nostalgia as well. I just want to make sure I don't leave him out there. Man, this young man right here, I want to make sure I give him. I see you, Keith. Man, it is good to see you, brother. I hope all is well, and I plan on reaching out to you after this. I will send you a message on LinkedIn. Thank you for your message. I greatly appreciate that, man. And we're going to connect after this.
Oh, he must be a good person. He said he was a medic.
See what I'm saying? Whatever happened to these principles we were just talking about? Okay, so
Exactly.
yeah, medic didn't make him a good person. He's just a good person. That's all.
So
Listen,
like Uncle Junior said, we were coming from two different books of standards.
oh my God. So listen, like I said, we talked about two different topics 2 weeks prior to. We talked about identity dysfunction. We talked about relationship dysfunction. Is there a connection between identity, relationships, and parents? And if so, what is it?
100%, yes, it definitely is. Because first of all, when we go back to relationship, is not parents and children a form of relationship, right? Uh, so that's one. And two, when we talk about like Uncle Junior talks about, where do you get your set of morals and standards from? What is your baseline that you use? Identity plays a part in that, and we have moved to a society that we try to gray the line between everybody's culture and everybody's beliefs, to where it kind of now it's almost like everything goes. If you stand firm on it on a line, like this is my line that I don't cross, you're kind of weird today. Something's wrong with you, because anything is supposed to go right. And so I say that to say, because that identity function part, it plays a major role with who you are, with what's your morals, where do they come from. If I have no identity, I have nothing that I glean back to as to why I do things and how I do things. Even to a more closer scale. If I don't know who my daddy is, I don't understand why I act this way, or why I got this club foot. not to be funny, but if my son inherits the club foot and he don't know how I operated with it, he learned from me because of what he inherited from me. So even to the point of, and that goes back to why it's important for both parents to be there, because I need to know who I came from, why my why I react to certain things, why certain things took me uh, a certain way, because of because of where I come from, and so I think it's a yes.
Oh man, this is a deeper topic. I gotta change hats. I gotta put a serious hat on now. But
Yeah, put the serious hat on.
serious hat on.
I need to take some notes.
Man, I
Need
got to
note
put a
taking
serious hat
down.
on because I think that when it comes to us, because I don't know everybody in the chat, but it's a lot of Hugh in here that's on the darker side. I think that integration messed us up. Integration pushed us forward, but it also slowed us down when it came to parenting our way because we started taking on their likenesses and their what they wanted to do, how they wanted to raise kids. So we already didn't have an identity. Now that takes our identity. That's why early on in the 60s and stuff, they would say, I'm black and I'm proud and stuff like that. Or they had slogans that reminded them of who they were. But then we said, okay, we want to be like them and go to their schools and do like them. And we started to parent like them. We started to allow them to parent our kids and say, well, it don't take all of that. You don't have to do this. So, okay, there go my man Chris. But so I think that when it came the identity, we are still reaching for other people's identity and allowing them to say, well, your kid got to find themselves. No, I can't allow them to just find themselves. I have to direct my children how I see they should go. How that's why faith and belief systems matter. Because if you don't have one, you just gonna take on somebody else's and or nobody's at all, and then you just gonna be allowing them to do whatever. Where because when I grew up, you couldn't have if you had somebody over the house that was the opposite sex, you ain't going in the room with the door closed.
No, sir.
You staying in the living room with everybody, your little brothers and sisters, everybody gonna be bugging you, and you just gonna sit there and suck it up if you want company. But now kids be in the room by themselves with the door shut, then come up there talking about you got to knock on their door. Knock on the door. I pay for it. See, I don't understand that, and I'm not changing just to pacify a kid because that's not to me. That's not the way it should be. Yeah, you got rights. You got the right to remain silent. No, but
The only right we had.
Hey, gentlemen, I'm sorry. Y'all say hi to my mama.
That's my
Hey, Mom, what's going on, Miss McCoy?
Hey,
See, she done jumped in. She say, "My baby boy."
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
There you go.
I know.
Just support my baby on his birthday.
Oh my goodness! Listen,
Shit.
continuing on with the question.
Yeah, I ain't the only one who get the smile. Is
Oh
when they
yeah,
mom
no,
come on.
no,
Hey.
and I own it because I love my mama. That's why.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But so listen, she tells everybody how to listen. I agree with so Roland, you were leaning in the direction I'm going, brother. I'm with that. Like our children, like children learn who they are by observing their parents, right? They pick up they pick up mannerisms of their parents. Like most boys, especially when they're young, they try everything they can to emulate their fathers. Girls try everything to emulate their mothers. Like that's the training ground. Fathers train sons, mothers trains daughters, right? The special relationship, mothers to sons, fathers to daughters, special relationships. So within the context of that woven, that woven relationship, there is an identity that's discovered. Oh yeah, by the way, it also depends upon the parent's response to the child. Uncle Junior, I know you're aware of this working in the school system. The way the parents respond to the child growing up, it kind of helps them express themselves as they get older. And I always draw a blank connection theory, right? So it is the way that parents respond, not only the way that they respond but the way that they'd empower them to talk, express themselves, like all of these things, like the training ground, like we talked about, we train them up in a way that they could go, give them everything that they need to function properly. This expresses how this defines how they express themselves in relationships. Are they guarded? Do they feel like they always have a gate up? Are they open communicators? Are they honest? Do they feel like they need to? Do they always seem like they're living their relationship through the lens of fear? Right. So all of these things happen because of their identity. Well, when they actually get married or, find somebody to get married or connected to, what ends up happening is that they find a person that fills in the gaps of their shortcomings. That's my thought process. That's my belief. So that's really what I believe. So if I have low self-esteem, I'm going to pick somebody that feeds my esteem constantly. That's really how that works. Well, when they start having children, guess what the parents teach the child? The exact same behavior, because we just talked about it. We learn our parenting style through our parents, right? It doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them, it doesn't make them, bad or anything of that nature. They know what they know. And as we grow and as we learn, we're supposed to learn on top of what they taught us. So each parenting group, they become successively more intelligent when it comes down to parenting style. And hopefully, when it comes down to those children, those like Roland like to say, those churns, they can actually develop them in that way as well. Brother Gaddy, I'm sorry I cut you off, sir. I got excited for a second.
Nah, you good, coach. You going there? Nah, because
He
you
said
had
it's
you
funny
had
because
also said something
his
that,
mama
that
came
triggered.
in.
Oh, here we go.
His mama came in.
Mama came in. She
Here we
said, "I
go.
love you."
He
That
had,
joke, chest stuck out. He said,
Wow.
"That's all right, Mama. Pump your
he
son up."
Hey, man.
Go ahead,
and he
Dad.
about to mute his mic in a second.
Yeah, yeah,
He about to
absolutely.
mute his mic in a second. Be in the
Hard to mute
background talking
everybody.
about. She told me everything and everything you giving me.
Listen, man, really, you getting the cameo right now? His CD
My
dropping
bad, my
next week.
bad.
And I'm joking.
Nah, but you shine the light in me that like a light bulb went off for a second though when of reality that didn't click until I heard you say it out loud, right? Daughters, as they get older, begin to emulate mom. Sons, as they get older, begin to emulate dad. And really, I'm not saying anybody in the chat room here does it, but I've seen people lately shaming the other parent, the father, for being more of a spoiler of his girls, and mothers being more of the spoilers of their sons. And it goes back to this why we are both important. Because while you are molding that girl, the only thing that I can give her as she get older is my love, my my protection, of course, and my affection. And same thing with a boy. As he gets older, only thing that you really can give him as he's becoming a man is that love and affection. So I don't know what's going on with this new generation, but shaming mothers
Mhm.
for loving their boys and shaming fathers for loving their girls the way they do. Well, if we're both there, it balances out.
Yeah.
That's my take. But you shone that light on me when you said it out loud, though.
No, I appreciate that, man. And I mean, I'm glad I did shine a light, and I hope I shine a light to some other people as well, because I just want to put this up real quick. So these are the four parenting styles, right? You have the authoritative, you have the authoritarian, you have the permissive, and you have the rejecting or neglecting parent. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time dissecting all of these, but you want to be in the authoritative parenting style, right? The relationship is reciprocal, responsive, high bidirectional communication. That's where we want to be at. That doesn't start out the gate. I want to make sure I say that. You can't do that when the baby is in the diapers. I just want to be completely transparent. You have to build them up to that point. So, again, if you want to become a better parent, have a good understanding of parenting, go study the four parenting styles. And again, if you want to have a conversation about it, because again, that's the space that I exist in, I don't mind talking about it as well, because again it's something that we need to spread throughout our community, right? These different understandings of parenting, it kind of helps us to take a look at ourselves and say, hey, I may have been doing this a little wrong, when I was when my kids was in the house. I probably was a little rough. I can say that. But I think that's really it's something important to think about. Now, moving forward, signs and symptoms of dysfunctional parenting.
Hmm.
Gentlemen, begin.
Hmm. I think I can express this because I had a dysfunctional relationship because of substance abuse, where now child is more parent than the parent because you got to take on responsibilities that you shouldn't have to as a child. So now the roles are kind of reversed, as well as what you can tell me is limited because of your lack of ability to truly be a parent right now because your decision making isn't right. So when it comes to parenting and whether it be alcohol, drugs, or whatever, when you have those vices that lead you away from your true responsibility, it can either hinder the child and making them follow that direction, or it'll make a dysfunctional relationship where the child becomes the parent and the adult is the child.
That's good.
I think one of the signs and dysfunction of parenting is a lack of structure. Like I said, I see it in elementary school every single day. See kids come to school, and I've heard parents tell me, hey, I told so and so to take his medicine, but he didn't. But the kids in first grade, like you're the parent, like you got to make him take his medication. You can't leave it up to a 6-year-old to take their medication. So, I guess I want to, I guess start right there is, lack of structure, and then, consistent positive parenting skills. And sometimes it's due to no fault of the parenting at all. Maybe, well, let me back up. They do play some role, but if they don't get the information, they go out there and have a child early or something like that for whatever reason, and then they out there and now they're in the situation. But they may not have had structure growing up, so now they're passing on non-structure to their kids, lack of skills, to be able to cooperate and work with other people and stuff like that. And what I mean, like you said, you see parents all the time like acting up, being role models. Regardless, they're a model for for their child, and they're acting up and they're showing lack of discretion and lack of discipline in their behaviors and how they act, and which is creating a lack of structure inside of the home, and it's being passed on down to the child, and it's creating a bunch of dysfunction.
I like that.
You about to say something? Okay?
Um, yeah, I was actually right on board with where Uncle Junior just took it. Some of the signs and symptoms is definitely lack of structure, and also uh, I would say a lack of ability to adapt to change of structure, right? Um, because when you can only operate, or your child only operates in one way, typically it can come across as if, well, I'm just gonna say it's as if they only operate in the space in which they are comfortable, right? And I think that also plays a part in structure because you got to, how how would I put it? You got to be able to teach your child how to how to just follow directions, or follow, you know, the authority where they are, especially when they're leaving for school. You work in the elementary school, you know, following instructions will help you adapt better. So I see one of the key things is a lot of kids have problems with change and adapting to authority. Well, I like this teacher and I don't like that teacher. Or I like doing this and I don't like doing that. I mean, one time my son got in trouble for not listening. He just said, "Well, I didn't like what the teacher told me to do. Well, I don't care if you like it, but you're gonna do it. Unless it's anything that's moral and right, of course. But those are those things I think that shows its ugly head when we have dysfunction in our parenting.
Absolutely, I agree. I want to. I'm gonna present two other points. Um, I want to say that one of the biggest dysfunctions that I've become aware of is that some parents fail to identify the transition points in the child's life. When children develop, you can't continue to treat them below the transition point that they're supposed to be in. Fathers are guilty of that, especially when it comes to their daughters. I'm just saying, and I think most fathers are guilty of that with their daughters because they don't ever want to see their little girls grow up. That's just the truth. I'm being honest. That was me, right? And it's not that we don't treat them as they're getting of age, but it's just some things we don't want to expose them to because we fear that they may get hurt, especially when it comes out, going out, hanging out, well, all that other great stuff. We want to protect them. So I think that's one of the biggest things that parents struggle with is failing to identify the transition point for a child. Going from, like Uncle Junior put in the chat about, when should, elementary kids go to bed, right? As soon as they eat. No, I'm joking. So but
Yeah, as soon as they
but
eat,
yeah, as soon as you eat at 5 o'clock, go to bed at
go
5:30.
to bed,
So
yeah.
but failing to identify those transition points, like when do they graduate from that elementary school bedtime? Like when they get in high school, do you let them stay up all night? Or do you see what I'm saying? So understanding those transition points are amazing. Um, I think another point is some parents fail to instill in their children emotional understanding.
Mm.
I think that's another one that's huge. Um, so, with that being said, when it comes down to emotional understanding, no is not a bad word to a child. It builds resiliency within the child. Telling your child no does not make you a bad parent. If your child don't like you for the next 5 minutes, it's okay. They will get over it. I'm sorry. So again, I think Michelle put in the chat. She I think she's in my notes because she want to talk about gentle parenting. We're gonna get there. That's why I'm trying to avoid it. But I just think that that's one of those things. 2 points that I think is one of the signs and symptoms of dysfunctional parenting. Again, failing to hit the transition points and not instilling emotional stability in your child.
I like that. And I also think that parents fail to set boundaries because we allow the kids to act like we equals. I'm not your friend. You ain't about to be talking to me like I owe you something. I got to do this for you. Like I didn't grow up in a house where dinner was made. Somebody say I don't want that, and then they get in the kitchen cooking something else. What? No, you gonna eat it wet or dry, and that was it. And not that you got to be a tyrant, but I think when you have standards set already, and you allow children to usurp that authority that you have, you now set a new standard, and then now the lack of boundaries, it'll make these kids think that they're your equal, and they can start to make decisions in your house for themselves and for everybody else involved. And what it is, it's a lack of respect for your authority, and
Mm.
that's why you establish that early. You don't start parenting when the kid, like some people like to start parenting when the kid, oh, he just acting out now. He's 6 years old. In a minute, he gonna be 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you're gonna try to control him, and then they're gonna say he need medication. And it's not that he needed medication. He needed you to give him a stern talking to, take him to the bathroom. Yeah, bathroom, not throne. Uh, and give him an understanding. But we don't want to do that now because, and I definitely don't believe in beating kids. I believe in making sure that they understand structure. And like I think Tawami said, somebody said, no. You got to understand that word no. And just because it's no doesn't mean the world is coming to an end.
I agree. Mr.
Yeah.
Lyons, that's a good question. And I think that's an amazing question to ask because, what if your kids have ADHD? Gentlemen, do you want to tackle that one real quick?
I think having all these little baby kids I got, sometimes in the school system, and I have family members and friends that are teachers, and they will speak to the whole ADHD thing and how it's placed on children of color, because some, a lot of times most time it's a woman teaching them, and they don't necessarily know how to control little Tony. And Tony just needs somebody to tell him, sit your hind parts down, but they scared of Tony because they don't want to upset him because he'll get loud, this, that, and other. And then they put him on medication. Sometimes he just needs structure. And that's why I think we need more male teachers. We need authoritative figures in the school that can tell them, hey, dude, come on now, you need to slow down. Because, and I was a kid in school, and when you see you can run over a teacher, you run it. You ain't slowing down.
So let me get this straight. So what I'm hearing you say, right? You're saying that it's not that the child, in some cases, not all cases,
right?
It's not that the child has ADHD. It's just that the person that is supposed to be in charge of the classroom cannot control the child,
right?
And I'm using the word control loosely, so please don't get bent out of shape about the word control. But they can't find a way to have that child. They can't find a way for that child to behave. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
That is. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
Once the child sees, hey, I can get away with this, and I'm doing it, and so they're gonna try to put them on medication to try to control them, and they label them, and once they start that packet, they put them in that room, that classroom in the back of the school where they walk, and you 16 years old in the 5th grade. And it's like, okay, what happened? What happened was they didn't have structure, and we allowed them to fall through the cracks. And now they go through that. Well, I got ADHD. Ain't nothing wrong with you, because at certain times when such and such tells you to sit your hind parts down, you sit down. So don't tell me you just, I gotta have this, that, and the other. Now, some people do have these issues where they need these things to help them calm themselves.
Educator. True. All true. There are situations where children, first of all, brown and black kids are overdiagnosed for ADHD and placed in special ed. It's a stat. You can look it up right now and you can find it. So it's not just coming from nowhere. To add to that, Roland's absolutely right. There are a lot of kids who have been misdiagnosed and with ADHD, and they really don't have it, and they really just need that butt whipped. However, there is a child and they really do have, or that child really does have ADHD, then they're going to need more support probably than the average child, because they have a medical condition that they cannot control. So it is you have to make sure that if that child is on medication, that you do what you can do to get that medication dialed in properly, so that child can be the best functioning version of himself while they are high at school. I'm just being real. A lot of these medications, the ADHD medicine, have kids being in school looking like zombies. But if parents can find the right dose to give their child to where they can function, that's best. Have some therapy, have school counselors, or have parents working with an outside agency to where it's teaching kids how to deal with their anxiety or their ADHD or the other issues that they have. They also need to have a plan that involves the parents learning skills to help their child deal with those issues at the same time. So it's a big package, Mr. Lyons, and all of those things. The more of those things that you put together and have flowing in the right direction, the better off a child with ADHD would be. So it's all of it. It ain't just one thing. You got to do more than probably the average parent.
And see, I was one of those kids where, like in the 3rd grade, I always been a class clown, always been that person talking, and they would think, oh, he just needs to take this medication, this, that, and other. But it wasn't that. It was 3rd grade. They trying to give me medication, but then they tested me. What it was I finished my work. I'm done with this. It wasn't challenging me. So I was smarter than them. So I skipped the 4th grade, went straight to the 5th grade. And so they bumped me up because it wasn't challenging me. And I needed something to help me focus. And it was work because I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. So now I can talk to everybody. And I was disturbing the classroom like that. So sometimes they aren't being challenged enough, but the parents don't know because they don't spend time with the children out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Brother Lyons, thank you for that question. That was an awesome question, and I hope that we were able to provide some clarity on that question because I would say I agree 100% with everything these brothers are saying because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, I have seen this on several different occasions, and I even am in communication with a older woman, her grandson. She keeps her grandson, and he is, they want to diagnose him with ADHD. And we were talking, and I told her, I said, I would not be so quick to put that label on him first. Try some other things. I think what it is, at such a young age, you have so much stuff going through your head that you just can't focus. Because maybe when he was younger, nobody ever made him sit down and do one thing, focus your attention there. And so I think a lot of this becomes literally a lack of focus. So, man, I hope we
Be
answered your
trauma
question.
too.
It could be trauma. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So, man, I hope we added value to your question.
Definitely.
Thank you for such an awesome question, man, because I think that was amazing. And I think that's something that we need to talk about more in our community as well. Again, if you're listening, go ahead and hit the like button. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Share it with some people who you think that would actually find value in these discussions. And again, I just want to make sure I extend my warmest appreciations for you guys being here with us because you could be anywhere else this evening, but you're here. Christopher,
Hello, Chris.
welcome, my friend. How are you?
I'm well. Greetings, fellas.
I love the
Greetings.
skull
Greetings,
cap, by
man.
the way. I love it.
It's
Greetings, bro.
listen, man, it's not as cold as it was, but it was raining and then it went from raining to little pellets of hail. So yeah, the Scully stays on until I can feel my ears again.
I got it, man. That's why I refuse to move up north. Welcome to this evening's discussion. Gentlemen, the next question: what is your take on gentle parenting, and do you believe that it is dysfunctional?
I love
Yes.
it. Let's do it. I love it. Perfect. No, I'm just kidding.
Can we have a
Oh,
definition? What is general? I
yeah,
don't
go ahead.
necessarily understand.
I'm gonna speak as a product of a single mom home who got coddled. That's what I view gentle parenting, trying to shield us from what hurts instead of having us actually go through the pain that we're supposed to go through so that way we can learn how to adjust as grown-ups.
Hmm.
This is why you have men like me who are later on in their lives trying to figure out what a man is,
Hmm.
how a man is supposed to move. You know what I mean? Yes, I believe it's dysfunctional. Why do you think there's so many soft dudes out here?
Ooh-wee. Now we
Because their
talking.
parents kept them from getting hurt. And I'm not talking abuse. I'm not talking that. I'm talking teach that boy that he's not gonna win everything. Teach that boy that he need to defend himself. Teach that boy that life is not going to be handed to him, that he has to be productive because he's a man and men have to produce. We can't rely, well, a percent of men can rely on their looks. The rest of us gotta work. The rest of us have to be something. We have to do something. Gentle parenting is a dysfunction in itself. These
Dang,
boys need
Chris.
their asses whooped.
There you
And
go.
that's because I'm speaking as a product of this. These boys need to
There
learn
it
what
is.
it's like to get their ass whooped by life so that way they know how to handle it later on in life. Start them young. I don't know much about the other side of it. I've witnessed the other side of it, but for me, pulling myself out of everything and looking at it from an outside, looking at it objectively on both sides. One, we're both taught, we're both being taught at a really young age not to need the other. That's what I'm at. That's what I'm really starting to see. The fathers are teaching the daughters that they need to be independent and not wait for no man. The boys are being taught to be son husbands and be up under their mama all the time. Gentle parenting causes dysfunction to me. And I'm
I'm on
speaking
your
as a product of this.
Yeah, I'm on your side with this one, Chris, because I think that if gentle parenting means a softer side, I think that would be an issue because children, male or female, need to know what it's like to fall. Need to know because they got to be able to get up. And if you always picking them up, that's like when a kid fall. If you don't see no blood, let them get up on their own. Don't go picking them up. Oh, let me kiss your boo boo. Like especially little boys, mamas don't kiss their boo boos. Let them have that pain because you know what daddy gonna me as a father, even as a grandfather, if my grandkids fall now and I see they just hurt a little bit, they not injured, they hurt. What I do is like, oh, you want me to kiss your boo? You know what I do? I slap it. I slap it.
That's
I do.
abuse.
He got some heavy hands too. You heard that? Good grief.
No,
That's
but
abuse.
Sound like he broke glass just now.
Yeah.
It's like,
But see, when I say these boys need to learn what it's like to get their ass whooped, I'm not talking not allowing them to acknowledge the fact that they have emotions and shit hurts sometimes. You understand what I'm saying? But we have to figure out a way to deal with it and not through the extra emotion that a lot of these boys out here are feeling because they've been up under their mama so much.
I agree.
well, I would say a lot of it stems. Well, I would say almost all of it that I've witnessed stems from fear, right? Some of it from the fear of their past trauma. You know, I know a lot of mothers who coddle their children, and that coddling sometimes turns to, like Coach was saying earlier, treating that child like they're your friend because you keep them so close to you all the time, and you need some grown human interaction, and you begin to treat that child as if they're that, right? Um, and that comes sometimes from trauma that some of the young women go through that our families swept under the rug that we talked about weeks ago. And so because of the fear of the repeat of that trauma, I coddle my kid, right? And I'm more gentle, and I don't allow them to suffer, and they lose their opportunity to build resiliency. And then I say on the father side, I know I can only speak for two brothers on here, and my brother gonna have to love me when I say this. Some of it is the fear of our daughters running into niggas like us. Like let's just be real. I it and I'm not talking about who we are today, but who we were yesterday, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I
they
don't
say
want
they
nobody.
punish players by giving them daughters.
Yeah, I don't want my daughter to be
Yeah, no,
I'm kind of
a
feeling
not.
attacked.
I got old boys.
I'm feeling attacked right now. You know,
So this is funny. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I had to laugh because
No, I guess-
Chris made a statement, right? And so everybody on this started analyzing how many kids I got, or the boys or girls, or what. Everybody. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Everybody did it just now.
I'm like, I got all boys. I'm good. It don't apply to me. But I guess since I'm blabbering, I would say it depends. I think it depends on the child. I think that being a gentle parent for the child that needs a more gentle parenting type of approach is not dysfunctional. I look at it, if three of us up here, at least, with all of us, how many of us are in the military? Were you in the military too?
It's four.
Four of
Four
us.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, so
everybody
we
but
all were.
me.
All right, so we all were NCOs at one time. One thing I learned at NCO is that if different approaches or different leadership styles for different types of soldiers, different types of troops. So Chris, I may be able to take Chris, bring him up in front of the formation, then smoke him for 20 minutes, and then he go back and be fine. I may take Coach, bring him up there and smoke for 20 minutes, and he may be distraught for the next 2 months. So you have to know your children when you're parenting. So I won't necessarily say, I would say 20 years ago, no, my oldest son, 27-year-old, 27 years ago, me would have absolutely said that gentle parenting was just dysfunctional, yada yada yada. 47 now, and been a parent for 27 years, and just to look, I think is more so about knowing your children and knowing if your children would benefit from a more gentle parenting style, because it also depends on your child too and where you got that child from. What if you adopted a child that's been through a lot of trauma? What if you taking on three grandkids that both of their parents deleted themselves or something like that? You may need to take on a more gentle type of parenting. It doesn't mean that you let them run over you. You know what I mean? And then I put in the chat, a couple of different types of that we talk about in education all the time, and the lawnmower parent and the helicopter parent. You know what I mean? And depending on what school you at, depending on what types of parents you're going to deal with. And when you talk about them lawnmower parents, those parents shield their kids from everything. And I don't think that that's effective at all. Like, they need to go through things. You can be gentle and you can be firm and you can be direct and still have a gentle approach with your parenting style
Yeah, I'm.
without coddling.
Yeah, this is one of the ones I'm in the middle, right? Um, because I want to go back to what we talked about in the beginning. I believe that there has to be the teaching of principles within the household. And when it comes down to principles, there is rewards and punishments. That's just how it works out. Unfortunately, I can't shield you from the punishment that your behavior is begging me for.
Right.
Because when I do, I've just set a new standard.
Mhm.
However, I also believe that when that child becomes more mature, I don't have to go back to the original reward or punishment. We can sit down and have adult conversation to where I help you to understand the psychological, long-term, and emotional effects of your behavior. And I think one of the worst things, and this is just my opinion, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, I think one of the worst things that an older child can understand is that you have disappointed your parent, and that stings a whole lot worse and longer than that belt does. So when we start talking about the whole gentle parent society and everybody deserves a trophy, I don't disagree with gentle parenting. I just disagree where it's employed. I think it's employed in an area to where the child needs structure, the child needs order, the child needs understanding of what rules, regulations, authorities are all about. Because when that child becomes an adult, the world ain't going to be gentle on him or her.
I agree. And my second oldest daughter, she was my hyper child because Sharon McCoy, she said hyper also. And she was my hyper child, always dancing, couldn't sit still. And then when I got older, I was like, dang, she just like me. And she is the personality why that's my kid. I can't do nothing with the child. She just like her daddy and she knows it and she always followed me around and such. But sometimes we fail to see us in our kids and we try to beat it out of them. So I don't think it's one way to like all these little kids I got. There's no way I could have one broad stroke of parenting with all of them. It's the same way when I had Rottweilers. My oldest daughter, she was scared of them. She would, but the dogs would come by her and let her pet them and stuff. My second oldest, she wrestling with them, taking barrettes out their mouth and everything like that, and she roughhousing with them. And I think you gotta, like Uncle Junior was saying, you gotta know your children and know their limitations, and while at the same time making sure you don't cripple them or give them excuses, but push them to limits so that they can continue to grow also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, and again, not trying to change anybody's perspective here. These are all, suggestions and points of views, right?
Is that
Yep.
your mama?
It is.
Sharon McCoy?
Yeah, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I can't call her by her first name. I apologize. Mama Coach. I just, thought that's his mama. Yeah, I
Mama
apologize.
Coach.
Yeah, I can't call her by her first name. I didn't
Hey,
go to
hey,
school.
she's nicer these days. I got the mean one. We joke about that all the time with my nieces. Next question. Our parenting styles are different, husband and wife, and it creates a challenge in my home. What can I do to synchronize our behavior as parents for the sake of healthy child development?
Oh, I love this because I think first and foremost, uh, the two parties need to come together to establish their parenting styles. Not my mama did this, so I'm gonna do this, vice versa. Because what we usually do is say, well, it was good for me. So we try to buffalo our way with what we know instead of learning our relationships and our kids' relationships. Because I think growing up in Detroit, there was a certain hardness that my grandmother had to instill in us to live, to survive. Whereas in doggone Killeen, Copperas Cove, Texas, we don't have those same issues with survivability. So I think first and foremost is communication and learning what's the objective of us parenting these kids. Is it just to have them do what we say, or is it to grow them into adults that can function and be profitable for society?
I like it.
I think that
I,
I think I wrote two things down. One is I think that if you guys are on parenting styles and you guys are deep in it when you guys figure this out, I think that one of the first things you do is need to seek some sort of support, maybe from an outside agency. You know, hey, look, man, go to therapy. Like, look, we don't know what we doing. We ain't seeing eye to eye on this. You know what I mean? And then at some point, you guys got to get on the same sheet of music, however that looks like. I think it may start with, I'm not necessarily saying therapy, but it has to start with someone who can help you guys get on the same page. Because as long as you guys are at odds or you guys are thinking differently, you guys have two different plans. You know what I mean? Granted, this should have been a conversation that should have been had before the child, before the marriage, yada, yada, yada. Regardless, we're not there. You know what I mean? We're in a situation and we don't agree. And now what are we going to do? And I know from personal experience that can be hard. You know what I mean? When, something as simple as, hey, I want to whoop and Owen don't want to whoop. One want to whoop with the belt, one say, well, we only use switches in this house. You know what I mean? Or whatever it may be. I say I don't have daughters, but mom say she can wear the little short dress or the skirt with the halter top, and then dad like, nah. But mom like, well, it's her prom. You know what I mean? She only live once. You know what I mean? Be a queen, blah blah blah, whatever it may be. And dad like, nah. You know what I mean? Yes, that's 17, 18 years into the picture. But like I said, I think the first things is, you guys need to seek some sort of support, and then you need to get on a united front and then try to figure this thing out.
I'm gonna jump out there and say we don't have to do the same thing. That idea that I have to parent like you and you have to parent like me defeats the purpose of you and me being there. Um, I think it's important to understand how each other parents and ensure that we have the same end goal to what we're doing. But there's times that I have to get out the way and let you handle the girl and let you talk to her and teach her. There's times I have to step in, even with the girl. I have to step in and 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 you have to move out the way and let me handle the girl or the boy and vice versa. So sometimes you have to be accept and understand that my way is not your way. Can both work together. You know what I'm saying? Like I, I I think that's where a lot of misconceptions come from. You don't have to do what I want you to do as a parent, and I don't have to do what you want me to do as a parent. But we have to both I have to know and you have to know that what I'm doing is coming from a place of love so that you can accept or understand what I'm doing, because you might not accept it all the time, but have a little understanding. And then two, we have to be willing to talk about why we parent. I made the decision I made and understand where I'm coming from, or vice versa. Like he talked about the short skirt and the strap and all that other stuff. At the end of the day, I'm thinking as a protector. It might be her prom, but if something happens at that prom, no, it's not her fault. I get that. That's where the argument comes in. No, it won't make it her fault, but What I'm not going to do is give easy access to a predator or a perp. In no means. I'm not going to, no, I don't care what nobody thinks. I'm not going to send my child out there half naked and say predators and pedophiles need to get their act together. They do need to get their act together, but since they exist and it's a reality, she's not one. And so that's where I'm coming from as a father. But it look cute. Okay, I don't care. My 8-year-old daughter, I don't want her wearing makeup. Why am I presenting her to the world as a grown woman? Who am I making her attractive to? But we don't think like that. So we have to be able to have these conversations and understand each other and realize I don't have to do what you do and you don't have to do what I do. But we have to be able to give each other room to parent so we can parent together because we can both be effective at the same time.
I like it. Um, I mean, I just believe that when it comes down to um, synchronizing our behaviors, again, it has to be what is the overall vision for the house. I think that's it. It's not about me being the go-to parent because I'm liked the most. I think that's one of the things that we get into problems with. Like we have parents, and it kind of goes back to the whole concept of gentle parenting, right? We have those parents who just want to be liked. If my child gets mad at me, then oh my gosh, the world is going to come to an end. You're still a parent. Like parenting is non-negotiable once the baby come out the womb. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna call it a spade a spade. So when it comes down to it, we need to synchronize our behaviors. Taking a page out of Chris' book, put your ego aside, sit down, come up with a plan, a joint plan together, so that you two can develop that child into a healthy adult. That's the goal. That is the ultimate goal. And if there is any other thought that's in your head, we need to get rid of it right now because it has absolutely nothing to do with the child, just like the child support system has nothing to do with the child. I'm sorry, I threw that in there. It has nothing to do with the child. It's all about one person's ego over the other, or one person trying to control how the other person parent, or one person think they're more of a better father or more of a better mother than the other person. No, you're not. You're really not. So let's stay in our lane. Give the other person the room, like Timothy was saying. Give the other person was let me stop calling you that, man. Like Twan was saying, give the other person room, right? Give the other person room so that they can become the best parent within their space. There is learning and development happening on both ends. So the best thing that you can do is come to a place where you can learn together as parents, as long as you're learning in the right direction. I think that's important. All right, so we're going to kind of jump into this one, the last question, and then after you answer the last question, go ahead and roll into your final thoughts, gentlemen, if you don't mind. I'm gonna put the last question up so everybody can see it, and then we're going to set the conditions. Um, just say your part and then roll into your final thoughts. If you don't have anything for the last question, just go ahead and give your final thoughts, and then we'll move on to the next individual. So, with that being said, sorry about that, not you.
Oh, how can a single parent who didn't have a good relationship with their parents, be a functional parent? I have no idea because I do not have any children. I do see it with my friends though, because a lot of my friends grew up in the same household that I did, and they took a lot of the things that they learned from there and did the exact opposite in their homes. And it is working. It's I guess the single parent has to unlearn all of the things that they were taught under the dysfunction of the parent that they didn't have a good relationship with, to do what they need to give to that child what they never had. It's like learning in reverse. It's hard and it takes a while, but it's possible. But that would be where I would start. But I'm only speaking from what I see. Like I said, I don't have any children, so I don't have any personal experience.
Gotcha.
So we're rolling into final thoughts.
Yes, sir.
I guess my one final thought would be this. Parents, whether you are a father or whether you are a mother, when that child came into this world, it became your sole obligation as a human being to make sure that that child had the absolute best possible chance to be a productive person in our society. That child is not a bargaining chip. That child is not a bartering tool. That's a human being who deserves love from both sides and deserves structure from both sides. Put your egos away, find a way to make it work, and figure it out. Your child has a better chance with the both of you being present and actually working together than they do seeing the both of you compete over who can get the most out of the other parent through the child. Figure it out. Your child has a better chance. And your child will have a better chance of keeping the legacy going with somebody else if they can see you two functioning together like you actually like each other. It ain't about you, it's about your child. Make your child's life better. Work together, figure it out. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Yes, sir.
Um, how can a single parent who didn't have a good relationship with their parents be a functional parent? And then final thoughts. As I look at my notes, it works for both. Three things. One, get support and help. If you're a single parent, you need to go out there and get some help or some support. Um, and learn. What I mean? Learn what it looks like to be a good parent. There's books out there, there's information. I'm not saying that books are going to teach you every single thing that you need to know, but they can offer some perspective. They can offer some examples. And then as we talked about earlier, what set of principles are you using in your life that are guiding you on, what it looks like to be a functioning or correct parent, or what a right parent looks like. If you are a person who believes in the Bible tells you exactly what you're supposed to do to be a parent. It's lined out right there for you. Another thing is find a couple. For this, find another single parent who may be doing the right thing. And for the final thought is find another couple who doing the right thing, who are good examples and good emulators of what good parenting looks like based off of that set of principles that back to number one. And then number three, parenting is constantly evolving at the end of the day. So you got to evolve with it. You got to continue to learn. You got to continue to grow. You got to continue to have conversations with your children, learn about them, and just continue to grow and evolve. And you know, like I said, all of those things put together, and I think that you will have a lot more success as being a parent than someone who doesn't apply, three of these techniques.
I love it.
So I think for me, my answer to this question can kind of double as my final thought because this is a really good question, right? And it hits so many fields at one time. The first thing I want to echo what Uncle Junior definitely said is find someone you can emulate, right? And when you find those people you can emulate, don't emulate them blindly, but make an effort to create a relationship so that you have a fountain that you can draw from, right? Ask questions because sometimes application without understanding leads to its own version of dysfunction, right? You can do something without understanding why you do it and misuse it or misuse that application. So get some understanding, draw from that well, communicate with those people. Two, if there's an opportunity, depending on what caused the friction between you and your parent, if there's an opportunity to reconcile, because that relationship between you and your parents is going to be something that your child will watch and will view. And if especially if they like what they see with how you and your parents interact, they will emulate you when they become an adult to you in that relationship. So I think that that is also important, right? Who- And so we have to. It's possible, and anybody who say that is not possible, it's possible, right? And secondly, if you are, there's not many of us, but if you're a single dad out there, and there's a good reason why that mother is not in that child life, and you're raising them by yourself. If you can build a relationship with your mother, or you have a mother figure, someone you honor, or big mama, whoever, bring that child around, because it's very important that what's the word I'm looking for? That caregiving spirit that a woman have. Y'all know the word I'm looking for. It's just not dropping in my head right now.
Nurture.
But say again, sir.
Nurture.
That nurture. There you go. I knew if anybody knew the word, it's coach.
I'm
But
going to
that
sit down.
nurturing spirit that the mother brings, that the woman brings, is highly necessary for everybody. There's those of us who grew up without it and we think we're fine without it, but some of us we're missing something because we were missing that. Whether we have mothers or not, because some mothers sacrifice that nurturer to try to bring a masculine energy into the house, and it doesn't work. So if you can reconcile with other parent and have them involved, whether your mother or father, I say do so and give that opportunity. You can be single, but parent collectively. You can still parent together. It's possible. It can happen, and it does happen. There are people out there, and if you know anybody, hey, talk to them and emulate it. So I don't want to take up no more time and waste no more of my breath. So I'm gonna leave it there, man. Find you some people and don't just emulate them blindly, man. Communicate with them. There's resources out there. There's people out there. Hey, or call one of these coaches, man. This is what they do.
This joke gonna take 37 minutes and then go. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, y'all
Well, I
said all
wasn't
the
done. No,
good stuff. No, yeah, I had to write stuff down because that old anxiousness in me is not ADHD, it's anxiousness to have something to say productive. I think when it comes to the question, I think when you realize that whether it's you, whether it's whomever else, whether it was your parents or other people's parents, we all come up in some form of dysfunction no matter what. Nobody's perfect. So when it comes to you becoming a functional parent, they said it all. Especially, I was blessed with good examples as I grew older and my children were younger, and I had good examples around me that I could look to when they were going through things. I could look to say, "Hey, man, what's going on with this? My daughter's having these problems." When you're a father and you come home and your daughter's 10 and she say, "Daddy, guess what?" And I'm thinking, "What? Little boy talk to you at school?" No, I had my period. That's something that a man ain't necessarily prepared to handle. So I needed women that I could go to, that I could take my children to as a single father. And but having those people around you that support you, that mean you well and love you and your children, will be beneficial to you becoming a functional parent and adult, because parenting doesn't stop. Even when your children get grown, it doesn't stop. So you are to be ever learning in that whole thing. Now, when it comes to my final words, there are a million books on parenting, and all of them can benefit you in some form or fashion, but they are all merely references. We are ever learning as parents, because we got to learn when they little babies. We got to learn when they get toddlers. Then when they get young adults, adolescents, and all that other stuff, they start smelling themselves. We are ever learning. But as you are ever learning, remember, you are ever teaching. So as you expose them to new things, you're being exposed to new things. That's why when your children are growing up, make sure you expose them to as much as possible. Don't just try to shield them from the bad parts of society, the bad parts of life, because then it shocks them and then they don't know how to act and they just act off emotions. So when it comes to this whole dysfunction thing, realize that you're a dysfunctional person. You do some things nobody else does, nobody else likes. No, but it's not about that. It's about you and that child establishing a relationship. And as you guys establish your relationship, you grow together and you start to realize, man, this little knucklehead just like me in a lot of ways. And it's some things that you like, some things that you dislike. But as you see it, you teach on it, you speak on it, and always keep lines of communication open, because when you have open lines of communication, it allows you guys to foster a relationship where when they have problems, they come to you. They don't go to Jimmy. When she shouldn't have to go to another man to have her sexuality or her looks validated. That should be her daddy. That should be those men in her life. So keep lines of communication open and just learn your children and continue to learn yourself as well as a parent.
Man, I love it. Listen, I ain't got no final words. They said it all. There's no need for me to repeat what was already said. I think everything they said was right. One thing I would just add is that the spirit of learning does not require you to devalue yourself or your position. So if you are a parent, you don't have to devalue yourself as a parent when you understand I don't know how to parent. Learn how to parent. The kids need you to do so. So with that being said, listen, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, gentlemen, on this panel for again another great conversation. Listen, we will talk to you guys in 2023, same time next week on Friday. We look forward to seeing you. Happy New Year's. Blessings to you and your family. Enjoy yourselves. Watch some college football tomorrow. Georgia and Michigan play tomorrow. We don't play each other, but we're going to play the following week after that. Listen, blessings to you guys. Have a great and wonderful weekend. And we'll see you guys in 2023. With that being said, we are out of here.